Hello. Hi. Just a second. Sorry, there's a lot of noise. The knitters are here in the other room. They're pretty loud. Hi, I'm Sue.
I can't hear them, so it's great. Can you hear me okay?
Well, and I think I'm gonna try to do something about this one light behind me.
Okay, sounds good.
A little better. Anyway. Okay,
Oh, that's better. Yeah.
a little better. Sorry for the other one. I'll try to have my
Oh,
head.
It
But got
is.
you on the big screen, and then that's how we do it. And I don't know how many people are coming in person, so it'll
Hey,
be
we'll
what it'll
see.
be.
We'll
But
see.
I have like 60 people registered to Zoom, so we'll see how many of them show up.
Wow. You never know. It could be like two, Well, I saw there's two participants. That's us.
There's somebody waiting. She doesn't, it's supposed to be at 7, but anyway, and I'm
Eager.
using the cable, the Towns account. So I have the recording paused, but I am going to record it for them. I think I asked you already if that was okay.
Yes.
And they're just showing it on the local thing, the local account. Now, Tewksbury, he wants to know if he can show it on he can add it to his web page, and I don't know, Okay,
Sure.
great.
Oh, yes.
I just don't deal with all that extra stuff, So it's like,
Yes, would you fax me the legal forms right now?
Thanks for laughing. I mean, it's like, I don't want to have to pay attention to YouTube and take it down in 30 days,
Yes.
whatever it
Oh,
is. And
you'll be fined on YouTube or something like that.
yeah, or they'll charge us. And
Yes.
but anyway, but Tewksbury, I guess that's how he can do it. He's,
Okay.
he's younger. He gets
Now, are you getting too much glare from the shirt? I can have a darker shirt, or
You look great.
I
Looks
think
fine.
we're looking okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's sweltering in here. We've had the most pleasant weather. It's been disgusting. The whole country's been suffering except for Seattle, and it's been in the mid to high 70s, and at night it gets down to about 55 degrees, then it goes up to about 78, 80. And then today it's 91 right now. So we're going to have a little heat wave, and then it's going to go back to normal. So, it's a little hot in here right now. I've got fans and stuff, and I've got the window blocked because it's got a big sun glare thing. So
I used to live in Maine, and we never had air conditioning. We only needed it like maybe 1-2 weeks a year. And anyway, not the first summer of the pandemic, the next, I guess, 2021, I finally visited one of my best friends. She works for the University of Washington. I finally got out there to visit her. And they live in Kirkland.
Yeah. Yep. Across the way.
And you had been having the heat that summer, and I just remember it wasn't bad. I mean, I just remember, and it was just things were just starting to open up a little. It was a weird time.
It's bizarre around here because we only have a few days that are hard to manage. So I don't have air conditioning. I just have fans, and it seems to work okay.
Well, they had built their house, and it wasn't that old, and they didn't build it with air conditioning. So there you go. So
I know. Well, I grew up in Chicago, and believe it or not, we had an old house, and there was only one room that was air conditioned. It was my parents' bedroom. So it'd be like on these really awful days, we'd all pile in with sleeping bags into my parents' bedroom. But
I grew up an hour south of Toledo, so
the Midwest, I tell you.
So same thing, and it wasn't until going into my senior year in college, I was the youngest. My parents finally got central air, but up until then, they had it in the dining room because the thinking was eating, and it was like, and they'd close everything else off. They had the fan in the the big fan in the
Oh,
attic. It was supposed to pull everything through. And we all would camp out in the dining room, you know. It's like,
and you'd be like, I know we had like, it was with 6 kids. It was like, I think by about the time we had bad heat waves, we were down to like 4, but we were all like piled in there. And, you know, so yeah, my room was up on the 3rd floor. So it was like,
oh, wow. The
yeah.
attic, yeah. No, it's just funny. And then after we moved to Maine, the summer, I used to take my boys back to see the grandparents, and I had to go do the Cleveland and the Toledo area, and you know, my hometown, Tiffin, and then I had to go to outside of Indianapolis to see all these relatives. I'd take them because I was in the school, so I had the summer off with them, and I'd go back for like 6 weeks, and it was like, like, where should I have been? In Maine, where it was nice. No, I'm in the Midwest and it's 101 degrees.
Sweltering. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's the stupidest thing.
Oh, it's terrible.
So
But you guys just had something. It was pretty awful in Massachusetts about what, a week ago, 10 days ago?
Last Tuesday, and I was meeting one of my former coworkers from Scarborough, Maine. She's been retired for 3 years, and they forget I'm not retired. They're older, and it's like, hey, can we meet for lunch? And I figured, what the heck, I'm gonna take the day.
No.
And I picked the place that was right off the highway because she was on her way to the Cape, I think, for something, to visit a friend in southern Boston, south of Boston. And anyway, I thought this will be handy. I can get her right back on the highway. Well, I'm driving, and you know, she had said she texted me at one point and said she has Bluetooth because I can't do that in my car.
Oh, tell me about it. I'm same thing.
She's like, I'm running late. It's gonna be closer to noon. I'm like, fine, it's right down the road. So 10 minutes to 12, I leave, and not knowing my street was flooded. And then I get down there and I went through 2 things, and then I go past where she's gonna get off the exit. And there's 2 police cars, and they've got the tape, and they're like, nope. And right there's the restaurant. It was flooded. It was everywhere we were gonna go.
Oh no.
So luckily I could go on a little side street. And I'm thinking, so I called her, and she picked me up, and she's like, do you still have the same green car? And I said, yes, I've been here 8 years. And I go, yep. And she goes, yeah, she goes, I thought I just saw you. And so she pulled up behind me, and I'm like, okay, we're going to go to plan B. And I was like, I had to think, I'm like, I'm afraid to go anywhere. But we went back, like there was a little plaza that I passed. We had to go through this water again. And we pulled in, and I thought, well, there's a little cafe. Well, they weren't open on Tuesday, but there was luckily this little Chinese place.
Oh God.
So we went in there with everybody else who must have been the same thing.
You know, those Chinese restaurants are just notorious they're open no matter what. You know what I mean?
You got it. It was so rough. But by the time we came out of there, it was all dried up.
Oh, geez.
Well, I don't know about, I didn't go back by that restaurant, but at least where we had driven through right there. And then she was trying to think how to redirect her. And I said, I think you're okay, because you got off the highway. You got off there, okay? Just go back that way. You know?
Yes.
And she said,
my God.
She texted me later and said, it's a good thing that, like, her friend, she wouldn't have been able to get to her friend's house. Everybody on that street, her friend's car was okay, but a lot of her friends' neighbors' cars were ruined. They were underwater. So I still don't know where she was, but closer to the ocean, obviously. But anyway, yeah, that was one for the books. That's I'm just glad we didn't lose power. That just would have.
That's what I hate. I live alone, and so when you lose power, it's not an adventure. You know, like if you're in a family, if you're married, if you've got a girlfriend or boyfriend, it's okay, because it's like part of an adventure. You pull out the flashlights, you talk, you play, board games. If you live alone, it's just like, oh shit, I'm stuck here, and all I can do is read.
I luckily bought one of those things you wear around your neck, the lights.
Oh,
And
Oh,
so then
smart.
but it was upstairs when the last time the power went out. And I was like holding my phone,
Oh,
like,
no. Oh,
and
God.
I went out the next day and got batteries and extra. Now I'm ready, but
You are ready. You are geared up.
well, it was hilarious is that on Tuesday, then after that, I went home. And so of course I came in, everybody's like, how was your day off? Cause I was thinking, well, how was it? I go, some day off,
Oh, I hate that. You ought to get, you ought to get compensated when they have
No,
the
I mean, it
power
was
goes
like,
off.
I didn't go anywhere after that. It was like, I found my friend and then, and she wasn't, stranded somewhere on
Oh,
the highway. And
oh, what a drag.
oh, anyway, well,
Um,
we have a few minutes. We have like 20
okay.
minutes and so I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna, introduce you and then I'll turn it over. I mean, basically you have such an interesting background with having worked for the railroads before.
Yes.
So, and you can, I'm just let you do that and we'll go back and, I'll I have some questions if it needs to keep it going and we'll see how it goes. And at
So do
the
you want to
end,
start off with a question and then I can sort of use that as a
yeah,
springboard? Okay.
yeah, I'll probably just ask you like, how did you get into writing, that kind of thing or
Yeah,
something.
that's good for like
Basic.
a half hour, by the way. Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
And we have an hour, I assume.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're till 8. So it's,
Okay.
whenever, we'll see how it goes. And, I have 3 of your arcs, but because I have so many people that are zooming, I'm just gonna give it to the people that come in person. I decided
Okay.
to make my life easier because what I've run
Oh, then you
into,
have to mail them. Yes.
yeah, exactly. If I recognize and I don't know a fair way to do it, and then I can't, how many times I've gotten these people like, well, I used to live in Massachusetts and now I live in North
Now I live in,
Carolina.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, or I live in Canada, and you're like, well, I
Yeah.
can't send it to Canada. I can't do, like, oh, yeah, I hate that. It's like,
So
yeah. And
I
people who
just,
get stuff for free are always so demanding. It's like they're the most
well,
demanding and high maintenance people. If they're getting it for free, damn it,
yeah.
better be on time.
Well, I figured that the people that are making the effort to come here tonight, darn it, they deserve
Yeah.
it. I
Yes.
I know one of the knitters is coming. I did a summer adult reading program, which I never till I started this job. It was funny. And during the pandemic, I had time off from that. And I made it harder than it needed to be. And finally last summer I came up with a bingo game and everybody loved it. So
Oh,
I did a
wow.
bingo game again.
Oh,
and
smart.
and I made it that some of the squares said, and they get raffle tickets and all the stuff and they win prizes. They're gonna next week I'll do the drawing. This is the last week for it. And they get a raffle ticket for coming to a program. So that's why we might see some more of the knitters coming in because they want to get this last
Hey,
week to
I
fill
like
their bingo
that.
card.
Any way we can get people in the seats. That's
You
great.
got it.
Potential readers.
Yeah. So
Ah,
I'm gonna mute myself and yep, see people are starting to come.
hey,
I'm gonna go use the bathroom real quick and then I'm gonna let my live audience come on in and then I'll wait till closer till start letting people in. Does that sound good? If you need to,
I'm going to do a bathroom break too. So
cool.
I'll meet you back here in about 5 minutes
Sounds
at the
good.
most. All right.
Bye.
All right, down
I'm
to the
back.
countdown.
Well, yep. Got like 10 minutes, so hopefully more people are gonna know. I feel bad. There were 2 people that tried to get in, but you know, it was too early. So
Ah,
so we'll see. I'm gonna go back to that screen. There we go. Oh, you know what I need to do? There we go. I got it so that you are featured on our big screen. Oh,
oh, I'm
good.
on the
Mike
big screen.
remembered. Good. One of my regulars. I have a really nice group of regulars.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there's a couple that comes from, how far away would you say Drake it is? 20 minutes? Half hour. Yeah, they drive a
Oh,
half
wow.
hour. It's really
God,
nice.
diehards. I love
And
it.
they've all become friends, so that's kind of neat.
That's a library for you, isn't it? You know, it's like,
My husband, like, he travels all the time, and like he's out in California right now, and he's like, and he was home, it was a couple months ago, and he goes, I have no social life. And I go, you got to come to the library. I go and meet these guys and then can hang out with, you know.
I tell you,
You guys are my social life. That's pretty, since moving down here, that's, I don't know anybody else. So,
libraries and bookstores. I tell you, it's like, you know, I used to work at, I used to work for the railroads, as you know, and then I took a buyout because one of my books, only son, got a movie deal, and so I got
yeah,
some money, and I had just enough money to quit my job, and so I took a buyout and started working for the railroad, or stopped working for the railroads. And I found after about a year and a half I was going crazy because I didn't, you know, writing is such a lonely profession. So I went to my local video store and said, do you need any part-timers? I would love to, because I love movies. And
yeah.
so they took me on. So I worked at this video store part-time for about 10 or 12 years. And, you know, it
Wow.
was such a social thing. We had our regulars, we had our people that I got to be friends with. Some of the people I'm still really friendly
That's
with, and we
nice.
closed in 2013. And so I'm like I'm like a little bit of a mini celebrity here in Seattle. It has nothing to do with my career. It has all to do with the video store. You know, it's like, you know, so we used to promote the books in my video store. So
That's cool. Yeah, but yeah, that's sometimes I say, I feel like we're you know, the show Cheers, and you know, and
yes,
we have our run like, because some people do, they just come in to say hello. They're like, I was on my way home from the grocery store, and I'm like, okay. You know, it's like, no, I don't, you know.
it's so
Speaking of, I just said I have a wonderful group of regulars. Here's my.
and they're coming in. They're
Yeah.
marching in. Just
They know the drill. They're filling out, putting their name on a piece of paper, putting it in the little can so they can win a copy of your book tonight.
oh, great, great.
So,
That's what I like to hear.
yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, that's what's happening right now. And I
oh,
keep
cool.
hitting my knee on this table. So if you hear me yell, that's what's going on.
Well, I'm in this little. This is a Murphy bed closet that got converted into my study.
Oh, wow.
So so it is. I'm really kind of restricted here. There's a wall here and a wall here,
Oh,
and that's
wow.
it. So it's like, meh. Looks like a train car. Speaking of trains.
Wow. Hi. Thanks for coming, you guys. So you can try to win a copy of his book tonight. And there's a, hi, Mike. Hi. You guys all have a chance to win. I've got 3 copies to give away. I'm gonna start letting people in.
Yeah, love it.
Okay. All right.
Hey, we got 3
Hello.
participants.
Yep. So I've got like got like 7 people here so far. And here comes the Karen. Is Larry with
The
her?
bus just unloaded.
Okay.
That's what I like to see.
You got it.
She took a book out to the car.
Okay. Hello, everybody at home too. We're just getting, we haven't started yet. We're just starting to fill up the room here. I got snacks too. That's an.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, please take as many as you want.
That was the
It's time to
draw.
read.
That was the real draw. Your
You
snack.
got it. Yeah.
It's like, and Kevin O'Brien will be there, but we have snacks.
That's right. Did you hear what he said? Because I have snacks. That's why you guys really came.
Yep.
And they're all going, yeah.
Yep, good snacks.
So I'm
Oh, no, I didn't. I'll grab one.
just showing you guys. So I'm getting up, walking away.
Okay.
This is the book that we have is that everybody else has. He's got a bunch of books. He's been writing for a while. And so and our copy has, because it hasn't been released yet.
Right.
It's not, this book isn't coming out till August 22nd. So
I see it in your bingo.
Yes.
Well, I took it back to the car.
I'm gonna mute it for
Oh,
a
you
second.
love
Okay. Sounds good. So they can talk behind my back. I don't know who this is. Who is this guy?
Wow. All right.
You've done it.
Well, welcome to the Langley Adams Library, everybody. I am so excited to be hosting Kevin tonight. He is a New York Times bestselling author, as well as USA Today and all those others. He's written over 20 books. So he's already established his career. But his book tonight that he's going to talk about, he's kind of added a little historical fiction in there with his usual thriller, which makes a little, we'll learn more about that in a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself. What I found fascinating about Kevin is that before he started writing books, he worked as a railroad inspector, and he grew up in Chicago, and it's because of his railroad job. That's how he ended up. He's coming live from Seattle, by the way. And so I'm just gonna turn it over to you, Kevin. If you could just tell us a little bit about your background and when your writing career started, that would be great. We're all ears.
Oh, sure. Oh, well, okay. I can start with back when I was a kid. I loved Hitchcock. I loved Alfred Hitchcock movies. And I think I got intrigued by it. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. And my oldest sister was afraid to take a shower in the house if no one else was in the house. So I was like, well, why was that? And then I heard about this movie Psycho, where a woman was stabbed in the shower. And I was like, oh, I got to see that. I got to see that. And I think I was just fascinated with getting scared when I was a kid. I loved Alfred Hitchcock Presents and One Step Beyond and The Twilight Zone and Thriller and all these TV shows that were all scary. And I'd love to scare the hell out of myself. And then I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. I'd be like terrified. I'd have a baseball bat by my bed. But that just kind of carried through, and I was sort of fascinated with Hitchcock. And by the time I was in college, I decided on a lark to take a creative writing class. And I started writing a thriller, and the teacher I had, her name was Ann Powers, and she was very encouraging to me. And I told her, I said, there are other writers in this class that are much better than I am. They're much better, like poets and wordsmiths. And I said, I really appreciate you going that extra mile and being so supportive. And she said, will you remind me of my friend Robert Bloch? And I was like, Robert Bloch, who wrote Psycho? And I went to school in Wisconsin, and that's where Robert Bloch lived. And Psycho was based on the Ed Gein case. And he lived in Wisconsin, and he murdered a few people and did things with their bodies that we won't even go into right now. But
I want you to know we are all laughing. This is great. Keep it up.
Because you were probably like, Ed Gein, we know who Ed Gein is. Anyway, yeah, so she was, in fact, you might see right along here, I've got these are all my book covers, and they're all framed. And I was invited to my teacher's house to meet some other agents and to do some sort of party she was having. And I noticed in her hallway, she had all her framed book covers. And I was like, if I ever become a published author, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have my book covers framed the way Ann Powers does. Anyway, so she was very encouraging, and I wanted to get a job, some sort of job that would sort of just to support me while I was trying to be a writer. So I got a job with the railroads, and that was sort of on a lark. That's too long a story to go into, but it was in Washington, D.C. And
Pretty good.
We're getting,
I'm on a writer's conference now, but I can talk.
we've got Barbara talking. Hey, Barbara. Anyway, I'm getting feedback, but that's okay. So anyway, I got this job with the railroads. I was working in Washington, D.C., and they sent me out to Seattle to be a railroad inspector. And I was traveling all throughout the Pacific Northwest, going to freight stations and looking at their records, and going out and looking at cars to make sure that they were properly loaded and properly secured. And it was a fantastic job to have for somebody who wanted to do something else. And so, because I had a lot of time alone, I was traveling. This was the days before computers. This is in the early 80s. And I'd go to someplace like Pasco, Washington, which is where God lost his shoes. And I would have to be there for a week. And, it's either go to the bar at the Red Lion or sit and watch Brady Bunch reruns, or you could write a book. And so that's what I really focused when I was traveling on, my writing. And I had a few people who I occasionally had to work with, other railroad guys who just didn't understand me. They would be like, oh my God, you can give up this writing thing. It's not gonna matter, blah, 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 blah. And my friend Dennis, who's tuned in, he got me. And so he was like, these other guys don't get you, blah, 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 blah. And I had the job for about 17 years, just long enough to retire. And while I had the job, I published 2 books. The first one was Actors, and the next one was Only Son. And, and 2 different books. And they both were mainstream literary type of fiction. The Actors was this sweeping saga about this actor and actress who fall in love, and one makes it and the guy doesn't, but she does. She's this big movie star, and he's nothing but a gas station attendant, and he's still in love with her even though she's this big movie star. I used to call it The Thornbirds Go to Hollywood, because it was so just melodramatic and everything else. I didn't think it was going to get published, and it did. I was stunned when it did. In fact, it took about 2 years to publish. And like I say, I was still working for the railroads, and I had made a goal for myself back when I was in that class at Marquette University in Milwaukee, and I was in that creative writing class. And I said, if I don't get published by the time I'm 30, then I'm going to give it up. I'm going to either focus on whatever job I have, or maybe get a job in advertising or something. But that was my deadline. And so on my 30th birthday, I get a phone call at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm thinking there's been a derailment. I'm like, oh God, okay. They need me to be someplace to watch some railroad car catch on fire. And it was my agent. And she was singing happy birthday to me like Marilyn did to JFK. And she said, you know, for your birthday, I'd like to say that you've published somebody has bought your book, and they have, so give me a call, blah, 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 blah. And so that was when I published my very first. So that's how I broke into the business. And I thought, oh, I've published a book. I'm going to be a celebrity now. I'm going to be on the cover of People magazine. I'm going to be dating Cher. I had all this idea that I was going to, I was suddenly overnight going to be a sensation. And I met the author, Terry Brooks, who's a best-selling author. And he said, Kevin, don't quit your railroad job yet. He said, you want to make sure that you have enough to live on for at least 2 years before you quit your job. And so I'm glad I listened to him, because it was not for another 10 years. I got published in 1986. That was my first book publishing, and with actors. And then the next book, Only Son, came out in 1996, 97. So there was a long time between books. And fortunately with Only Son, there was a movie deal. That was interesting too, that we couldn't sell that book to save our life. It was a book about a nice guy who abducts a child. It was a strange book, because it was about, he's a really nice guy, and he thinks that the father's going to be abusive, so he steals this infant, and then he raises the child as his own, and he turns out to be a real conscientious father. But when the kid's about 12 years old, he starts to put together that something's amiss. And it's the mother's story and it's the weird father story, and it's the kid's story. So told from all their points of view. And it wasn't selling. We couldn't get a publisher to take it. And finally my agent sent it to some movie people, just to see if they would be interested in the story. And we got a director named David Seltzer, and he had written The Omen, and he directed a few movies too. He directed oh God, I can't think of them now, but one was Shining Through with Melanie Griffith, and another one was Punchline with Sally Field. Anyway, he was interested in it, and he said, I'm going to show this to a leading man I have in mind, and I will let you know, I'll get back to you after he's read the book. So apparently the leading man liked it, and they wouldn't tell us who the leading man was. So I had my friends all like calling me up going, hi, this is Eric Estrada, and I am reading your book now, blah, 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 blah. And so I was not sure who this guy was who liked the book. And there was going to be a meeting at MGM to see if they were going to buy the book on a day that I was out in a railroad yard and it was raining. I was walking around in my hard hat thinking, right now there's a meeting going on in Hollywood, and they're having, they're going to decide whether or not they're going to buy my book. I get back from the railroad yards, and there's a message from my agent to call her. And I called her, and she said, well, are you sitting down? I said, yes. And she said, the MGM wants to buy the book, and Tom Hanks is the one who wants to be starring in it. And he had just done Philadelphia, and Forrest Gump was just about to come out. And so I was like, oh my God, he was such a big star then. And I was like, wow. And it never actually got made. It was going to be Tom Hanks and Holly Hunter, but it never, the man who wrote, oh gosh, it's Agnes of God, John Peelmeyer. He wrote the screenplay, and David Seltzer was going to direct. And it just apparently there was a problem with the screenplay. So Tom Hanks ended up doing That Thing That You Do instead of my book. And I was bitter, but I was fine because I got to keep the money. So, and I also got to 86 my job. At the same time, they were kind of they were downsizing. They were looking for somebody to leave. And my friend Dennis, who had been so supportive of me throughout my whole railroad time, he intervened and said, listen, they're offering buyouts. You're going to be with a bad group of people. Get out while you can and take a buyout and become a full-time writer if you can. And I was like, okay. So I took the buyout and I had some money. And so that was about 20 books ago. So that's a long, long explanation to your question.
We weren't entertained at all.
Okay, sorry. How many people left?
That was great.
How many participants went, okay, I'm out of here. This guy won't shut up.
No, we're all like, people are too bad they're missing this.
He
No.
won't stop talking about himself. He says,
You know, we know how that goes with the Hollywood scene. We have a retired undercover FBI agent that
Oh,
lives in
wow.
Groveland that wrote a book, Ghost. And
oh, wow.
I forget how many undercover operations he did anyway. And
Oh, neat.
Sylvester Stallone wrote the rights to his book. And of course, that was right before COVID, and
Oh,
never got made. I mean, we don't know what happened to it. It's like,
isn't it weird?
but meanwhile, Mike has gone on. He's on that show FBI. That's on. He's one of the consultants. So
Oh, cool.
I'm looking at Karen in the audience because she like came in. She's like, Mike's on. Did you ever watch that show? You gotta watch it. He's on it. So
I
it's like,
love it.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, you never know with this movie thing. It's like
Okay,
one of my friends, Kristen Hanna, wrote The Nightingale, which was which is a wonderful book. And I thought a movie was made right before the pandemic, but maybe not, with I think
the
Ellie
sisters,
and
the Dakota sisters.
the Fannings. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've never heard anything about it since the pandemic.
Dakota's the first name. Yeah, I that's so funny because I was just Googling that like a week ago because somebody came to check out that book and it triggered my brain. I was like, whatever happened to that? Yeah, there was a lot of hype, and somebody wanted the movie, but it wasn't that. There's a different one. It has like a nightingale in it, and it was like, nope, this isn't
there's
it.
a different Nightingale. Yeah. No,
like,
I was checking regularly. We have the same agent, Kristen Hanna and I. We did.
Wow.
I recently switched agents, but we had the same agency, and we were part of a same group called the Seattle Seven that started in Seattle with Garth Stein, who wrote The Art of Racing in the Rain.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Jenny
Yeah.
Shortridge is another best-selling author, and they started it, and it turned out to have like about 70 members. And so all these Seattle authors sort of belonged to this one group that did all these different benefits and book sales and things to help circulate books and get books out to halfway houses and homeless shelters and things like that.
Nice. That's
And
really
so
nice.
Kristen was part of that too.
Oh, she would. Yeah, that sounds like she would be a part of that.
Yeah. We had Maria Semple, who did Where'd You Go, Bernadette, and Tom Robbins and Terry Brooks, who I mentioned before, and Daniel James Brown, who did Boys on the Boat. He was in there. Timothy Egan.
I told you about visiting. Well, my friend that works at the University of Washington. I got to see the shell that were the.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that movie's supposed to be out soon. George Clooney is directing that.
Oh, wow, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Wow, you're in quite a league there. That's
well, it's like, I get starstruck. I go out there and I just meet these every day. I got to interview Jess Walter, and I loved his book Beautiful Ruins, and I got to interview him at a library about 2 months ago. And nicest guy around. And Beautiful Ruins is a fun book too. It's a great book. So check it out.
Everything in Hollywood's at a standstill right now. So
yes, I know. Good time to publish my book. I was like, I was thinking, okay. I was like, here's I'm writing something a little different, blah, blah, blah. It's coming out, and actually most of my books have come out in mass market paperback. And mass market paperback is like, and now this one is coming out in what they call trade paperback. So it's a little bigger.
nice.
And
Nice size.
it's a little bit more expensive. but mass market was kind of dying. It's kind of a dying genre. And so I actually wanted to make the switch. And that was part of my whole, I'll do a historical fiction instead of contemporary fiction, so.
So this is a good segue into, can you give us a little, without giving a lot away, what this book's about? I mean, I don't know if you want to share a little
Sure.
blurb.
Oh yeah.
Or...
No, I don't. Yeah, that'd be great. So just to let you know a little bit about my background too, it's like, what? He didn't give all of his background in that last thing?
You wrote thrillers, right?
I write thrillers. So that's basically it. I was writing paperback original thrillers. It was really weird because
Got a whole list here. He's written a lot.
yeah. I after Only Son was published, and I was working full-time as a writer as of 1997, I started a thriller because my agent said, you love Hitchcock, you should be writing thrillers instead of, mainstream books. And plus, as your agent, it's easier to sell a thriller. And so I was like, okay, I'll give that a shot. And so I wrote this thriller called The Next to Die, and it actually, when I sold it to my publisher, was the same publisher who did Only Son, it was for the same amount of money as I did for that I got for Only Son. And they said, but it's going to be a paperback original. It's not going to be hardcover. And I was like, oh God, I haven't moved up. I'm actually moving down. I was like, I've lost the prestige of being a hardcover. And I was kind of depressed about it. I was like, that's too bad. And then it became a USA Today bestseller. So they were like, well, okay, you found your niche. And they're like, you got to keep writing these thrillers. And I talked to John Saul, who the horror writer. And he said, well, now you have to write a book a year. Otherwise, people are going to forget you. And you have to churn out one book a year, and just to keep you in the game, so to speak. And so that's what I did from 1999, from 2000 on. I wrote a book a year. And just around the time of the pandemic, I was like, well, I want to make a switch. I don't want to be doing paperback, mass market paperback anymore. I want to do trade. I want to do, because trade books are reviewed more. There's a little bit more prestige. And mass market kind of just go out there in a flash and then disappear. And so I thought, I want a little prestige. What can I say? So I had this idea about this thriller idea about somebody who's murdering Rosie the Riveters during World War II. And I thought, that'd be I've had this thing percolating for like 10 years. And I pitched it to my editor. I said, what do you think of that idea? And he said, well, you're now a New York Times bestselling author, and you can't suddenly just stop writing contemporary thrillers. People are going to be upset if suddenly they're in World War II. And so he said, why don't you just keep doing contemporary? So I did, and I was happy, the books were selling, but there was a part of me that really wanted to go back in time. And one of my books was called Unspeakable, and it was about a kid who, when he was hypnotized, gets there was a case back in the 50s, the Bridie Murphy case. I don't know if that's ringing a bell with anybody, but it was a woman she was hypnotized at her psychiatrist, and she started talking in an Irish brogue, and she was saying that she lived in the beginning of the 19th century, and she had all these stories and about living in Ireland. And it was like, you're 20 some odd years old. You cannot, this was back in the 50s.
Yeah.
And in fact, it sort of inspired the film Vertigo, because the Kim Novak character in Vertigo keeps saying that she was possessed by this woman who died back in like 100 years before she was born. So I was fascinated with this story, and this kid takes on the personality, one hypnotized, of a serial killer at the Seattle World's Fair in 1962. And so I just love doing the research about Seattle in 1962, and that, that Elvis was at the World's Fair, and that, Kennedy came out and did the the initiation, and building the Space Needle, and how the city changed and everything else. And I just loved that. And I was like, I really want to do this history story, this thriller set during World War II. And I've always been fascinated by what went on the home front during that time, and how the sacrifices people made, and the restrictions that they had on buying things, and just the whole era, and especially on the West Coast, all the different things that went on here, because we had blackouts in Seattle. They would, at 11 o'clock, everybody had to turn off their outside lights, and the city just went dark, and they had blackout shades so that your lights at home wouldn't be shining out, because they were worried about aerial attacks from the Japanese. And so that was going on. There were Japanese Americans were being incarcerated. That's a story that Jamie Ford did with the hotel on the corner of Bitter and Sweet. And it's also the David Guterson story, Snow Falling on Cedars. So that was all going on here too. They were arresting Japanese Americans.
My husband's Japanese American. And his family, they were in the camps. Yep.
Were they in internment camps?
Yep.
In Idaho or in?
All over.
Well, I thought it was
I mean to get on a.
Yes.
But
yeah.
No, that's where they were in Northern California. Yep.
Yeah, but it was mostly the West Coast, as far as I know. I could.
It was only the West
Coast. So I think in my book, there's my heroine rents out her garage to a Japanese American couple, and so when they're moved to the camps, their house gets vandalized again and again and again, because people are like very upset after Pearl Harbor and stuff. So I just thought that was a fascinating time, and I took a couple of years off. I went against John Saul's advice and said, okay, I'm going to have a year off from writing and just do research. And I knew a lot about World War II anyway, but I learned so much more, and just had a ball doing it. And so that was the change of pace. And so that is the storyline. It's this woman named Nora. She's got 2 kids, a teenage boy he's 15, and a daughter who's 13. And her husband is away. He's a doctor, and he's away in the Army Medical Corps in North Africa. And she decides to join the women's workforce, and she works at Boeing as a riveter, and comes against a lot of men who don't want women doing their jobs, and is grappling with people vandalizing the house still, even though the couple have moved. And she's got sort of a strange brother who wants her to help him get out of the Navy so he doesn't get shipped overseas and killed. So there's all this stuff going on in her life. And then one of her friends who works at Boeing is murdered at home. She's strangled. And so there's a little bit of Ted Bundy thrown in there. And I think the jump I made was one of my friends through the different Seattle authors is Ann Rule, the late Ann Rule, wonderful woman. And she wrote the book, The Stranger Beside Me, about Ted Bundy, the serial killer. And they've talked about his motives for killing so many women was women's liberation. Was he really had a hard time dealing with women being empowered. And so I decided, well, that would apply to this killer in my story. These women are taking on men's jobs. They are suddenly very important, and it's irking him, and he's taking it out on these women war workers. So that gives you an idea what the book is about.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody have a question in the audience? Anybody?
Well, when will he shut up? That's their question.
No,
When will he stop talking about himself?
You're very entertaining. You're great. Yes, Mike. Just quick little view.
Write a book about murder on the railroad.
This is kind of my audience.
What was that?
When will you write a book called Murder on the Railroad?
Oh, that was always in my mind, is I wanted to do some sort of thriller set on the railroads, but to me, there's a part of it's like, ask Kevin
what word he
what
hates,
word he
the,
hates
most.
the most. I forget what is the word I hate the most, Dennis. I can't. He will type it up. Derailment. I was always
You
terrified.
can unmute
of
yourself,
derailment.
Dennis, and tell us.
Irregardless. I shouldn't speak ill of the dead, but we had a coworker who
That's who's gonna get murdered. Go ahead.
he just passed away like last year.
Oh, sorry.
He was the bane of my existence. He was one of the people who thought, hey, you should really give up this writing thing and become a full-time railroad guy. And he was giving a speech someplace and he kept using the word irregardless. and Dennis and I would look at each other and go, he doesn't realize irregardless is not a word. There is no such word as irregardless. It's regardless. Anyway, and that's another thing, is his name was Ron, and God bless. I shouldn't speak ill of the dead, but I have so many murderers named Ron in my books. It's like, if there's somebody I don't like, it's like, okay, I'm gonna use that name. Anyway, Ron is a
good one. Okay, I'm gonna look at some of this.
Anyway, so to answer the question though, is that for years I was thinking about maybe somebody hopping the railroads, the killer being somebody who's going from freight car to freight car in different stations and murdering people. And I've thought of different things, but I have too much inside information. And so it's like somebody with the airlines writing a thriller that takes place at the airlines. You don't want to know all the vulnerable spots that are out there with railroad yards and railroad transportation. So I've kind of avoided it, but it's still out there. I could still do it. So thanks for that question. It was a good one.
Okay, where is it? Kurt, Kurt Reynolds?
I do not know a Kurt Reynolds.
Katie's watching.
He's Katie's husband.
She's in the book.
Katie, I think maybe in the book. Kurt, I can't believe you're watching. Thank you so much. I think Katie might be in this book. I could look it up. I'm pretty sure there may be a Katie Reynolds in here someplace. I know I dropped a lot. I grew up like I say, in Chicago, and my grade school, we're all really still very close, and they all show up at my book signings. And whenever I go back to Chicago for a book signing. And so Katie's always there, and so is her husband Kurt. And so I have little cameos to different people I went to grade school with are in my book. So there's like there was an officer, Kurt Reynolds, in one of my books. So and I always have a nice Dennis. I can't have a bad Dennis in any of my books. So I did have somebody who actually wanted to be killed in one of my books. So
Jeez.
I did it, and I felt terrible. I was like, oh, he's a nice guy. I just had him. He didn't go well either. It was like an ice pick in the ear or something like that. It was not a good way to go. It wasn't a peaceful sleep death.
Someone asked, how do you get your ideas? Well, you kind of answered some of that.
Well, it's weird because okay, I mentioned my friend Jenny Shortridge. She helped start the Seattle 7, and one day she said, you know, Kevin, would you like to have your chakra read and your aura cleansed? And I was like, no. And she said, it's free. And I said, okay, sure, it's free. All right. So I went to this woman who was her hair cutter. And I went to this hair salon and sat down in the barber chair after the place had cleared out. And it was just me and the chakra reader. And she started waving her hands over my head and down by my feet. And she said, you know, you have holes and you have cracks in your feet. I was like, yeah, I do. I was like, I had my shoes on. So I was like, how does she know I have cracks in my feet? She said, you are letting in I see an evil little man, and you've let him in, and he's working with you on something. He's very evil. He's got terrible thoughts. And I said, did Jenny tell you I write these thrillers, that there's all this evil stuff going on? She said, no, but she said, there's an evil little man there. And I was like, well, let's not do anything about it. He's making me money. So the evil little man. So whenever I have some really creepy idea, I think it's that evil little man going to work. And sometimes I can scare myself. I was writing a really creepy scene once. I won't go into it, but it was for one of my books. It was just really creepy. And most of my stuff is not violent. There's not a lot of violence in my books. But it's mostly suspense and sort of, I take it up to a point, but I don't have a lot of bloodletting and everything else. And then I'll have the aftermath. But I was writing this really creepy scene, and I kind of creeped myself out. And it was about 1 o'clock in the morning when I was writing, and I heard a noise in my apartment. And I quickly got up from my desk here and went around, and my front door was open a crack. And so I was like, oh my God. So I ran into the kitchen and got a meat tenderizer. And I was telling this story to somebody, and they said, you got Lori's seasoning salt? I said, no, I got a meat tender, like a hammer. And I went from one room to another to make sure. And I don't know, no one tried to get in, but I must have left my door ajar, and but it scared the hell out of me. And so I can scare myself sometimes. So that evil little man is still giving me ideas. That's another long answer.
No, you're great. I had someone a couple weeks ago who's going to remain nameless, and it was like pulling teeth. I'd be like, so when did you start writing? When I was young. I was like, I can't remember, but it was like, what do you do on your downtime? I clean. So you're a delight.
No. Okay.
You should be. We're enjoying your stand-up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, okay. I'm gonna go ahead. I'll probably get sued, but very nice person, very, very nice person, but a very hard interview. I had to interview. Should I let you know who the author is?
Sure.
Okay. Because she was very sweet. Paula Hawkins, Girl on the Train.
Oh yeah.
Great book. And she, very nice person, but very hard to interview. And that was the same thing. I had to talk to her in front of a group of about 100 people. And she was entertaining once you got her going, but it was really hard to get the words out of her. And at one point, I was just like lost. You hit a wall when you're trying to grow, it's like, and I was like,
I've gone through all I have half a dozen questions, because usually people that gets them going, that's all I need. And I'm like, and even people were in the chat writing, I'm sorry I cut you off, but they were writing just to me, not to everybody else, going, I'm trying to think of something to ask, but I can't. Help you out.
Yeah, it was the same way with Paula. And God, like I say, she couldn't have been nicer. We talked. I kind of got the impression we spent a little time in the green room together before the before the interview.
Yeah.
And I could tell when we were talking in the green room that she was just very reserved but very nice, very personable. She wrote me a really nice letter afterwards saying thank you for the interview, and I loved her books. But she was just a tough interview. And I did get to a point in the interview where I was like, so writing, huh? That's a pretty interesting profession, isn't it? We really, us writers, I tell ya. And it's Sue, it's just like you said. I think the audience picked up on the vibe. So
Yes.
when it came time for questions, only
Whoops.
two people asked a question of her. And I was like, this is Paula Hawkins. This is Girl on the Train. This is, she's big stuff. One of the questions I asked her was, I said, do you have anyone who's regretting, who is probably regretting the fact that they turned down Girl on a Train? I said, because, as an author, you send your book out, especially a first book, out to so many people, and so many people reject it, and then later go, oh my God, I rejected Girl on the Train. So I asked that, and she said, I can't really talk about that. I was like, what the hell? Those are the good stories. Those are the fun stories where somebody's like, anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, Meredith is probably right. She saves all her words for her books because she's such a good writer. She's such a good writer, but she's not the easiest person to interview.
Oh, man.
Anyway, I apologize. I hope that doesn't get back to her.
No,
She was a nice person.
Yeah. Thanks for your candor and your,
Oh yeah, you're gonna get I'll be too honest.
No. You named the person. I didn't even name the person. I was like,
Oh, go ahead, tell us who.
I can't remember who it was. It that person whose book I just gave? Yeah, it was. Oh man, no, too recent.
Yeah, too recent.
It's funny your Kensington fellow Kensington authors that
That was it pulling teeth.
yeah, they threw my way, and I can see why. Like, you
Oh,
don't need
I
any
see.
help with your career.
Oh, they have some great authors.
No.
Charlie Donlea, he's terrific. I don't know if you've interviewed him yet, but
Who?
Charlie Donlea.
Yes. Oh
He does
yes.
thrillers.
Yes. And the reason besides we all like his books, he sticks out in my mind is because the fact that he never enjoyed reading.
Yeah.
Got into writing.
I was that
Just
way when I
jumped
was
right
a
out at
kid.
me.
Yeah, I was that way when I was a kid.
Wow.
I was not a big reader, and I took a reading class because I was so slow. I was just a very slow reader. I
Is he
think,
from Chicago too? Sorry.
Yeah, Chicago. Yeah.
Did you guys, I didn't mean to, did you know him in Chicago, or did you meet
Who's
him
that?
after?
Charlie? No, he came to one of my book signings in Chicago and
Oh,
showed up,
wow.
and I was like, oh my God. And he said, well, I've got a new book coming out through Kensington, and we have the same editor. And so, and he was nice enough to give a quote on this book. Forgot what he said. I can tell you what he said.
Yeah,
Let's
'cause
see.
I don't see it on here. It's not on my book.
He's on. Let's see. Come on, Charlie. Here we
Well,
go.
I've
Are
got
you
the
ready for
art, so-
what Charlie says about The
Ah,
Enemy at Home? A tantalizing whodunit set in World War II Seattle with a cast of red herrings that had me guessing and turning pages right up to the final shocking reveal, which I never saw coming. A perfect summer read. So
you know
says Charlie Donlea.
Do you know Robert Dugoni?
Yes, he's part of that Seattle
I
Seven.
was just gonna say, is he wow. I have a
Yeah.
history book club here, and a couple of my members are here. That's how we've read some of these books. So we read mysteries and thrillers and crime fiction.
And Bob has got a book out called The Life of Sam Hell. Have you read that yet?
I have not read it yet.
It's a departure. It's not a thriller. It reminds me of like Garp, of The World According to Garp. But it's really well done, really heartfelt, and it's sensational. I think my sister's book club just ate it up, and so they're all now Robert Dugoni fans.
Okay.
So in fact, we had the same agent too, as well.
It's just clicking. I just saw that he wrote a little praise for your book.
Yes.
I didn't even look at the sorry, I didn't even look at
Oh,
that.
fine. You didn't even look at, thanks a lot, Sue.
What kind of librarian am I,
Who-
right?
Who are you again? Are you Kevin who? I don't know.
I didn't even read the reviews. I just knew it's a good book. I didn't have to. I didn't have to go by what these people say.
You know, I paid them. No,
Yeah, that's.
favors were exchanged.
Oh, man. Well,
I did see a question from Meredith, but I forgot what it
Sure.
was.
I know she earlier asked about
She
your
asked-
framed pictures, but, oh, are you does Kevin always know who will be the villain? And is he a plotter or a prodder? Good question.
Oh, really good question. I have a sort of unique system of writing books now. After switching from mainstream to thrillers, I realized if you're going to write a thriller, you really have to outline. You really have to know in advance what you're building up to and who the big reveal is. Otherwise, it's one of those cheats where it's like, you know, on page 427, you introduce your killer. You know, it's like, oh yeah, there's this neighbor that I haven't even told you about, but he's the killer.
Well,
You know,
we've
and
read
so
some books like that.
yeah, and you just want to. Oh, I'm reading one right now that I won't mention it,
Yeah.
but it's driving me crazy because the author will have like suddenly somebody grabbed her by the shoulder, and then it's like end of that chapter, and then it's like the next chapter opens up with, oh boy, that cat that leaped out of nowhere that grabbed her on the shoulder really scared her. And I'm like, oh, that's so cheesy. I'm like, and this thing is a huge bestseller. I'm like, this is cheesy because it's like, you can't have cliffhangers like that. It's like, anyway, so I learned early that you really need to kind of outline and know where you're going and have sort of a roadmap, and that you can divert from a little when you finally write the book. But you know, I need to kind of know where I'm going with the book. And so I do, when I start outlining, I do pretty much figure out, okay, this is going to be the killer, and here's how I'm going to plant him in the story, and this is where he's going to show up or she's going to show up. And here are the different things, here are the different suspects, the different, you know, the different ways I can kind of pull the wool over the reader's eyes. And so I plan all that in advance. And then I submit the outline to my editor at Kensington. And he's like, yeah, good. I like this. If you could only do this and this, and then he'll have some suggestions. And then I write the book. And so when he gets the final book, he pretty much knows where it's going. And so there's no surprises. In a good way, there's no surprises. There's no like, oh, where did that idea come from? He really knows, you know, where I'm going. So we really very rarely have to do much rewriting at all. I usually takes only a few hours for me to do the rewrites he asks. I have my other friends who are writers. They're like, oh, I had to change my heroine to a hero. I had to change I had to kill off the wife early, and I have to rewrite all these chapters. It's like, you know, because their editor doesn't like some part of it. So it really works for me to have a solid outline. And by outline, I mean just sort of a mini version of the book. I don't have like point one, blah, 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 A, B, C. I don't do that. I do like, it's a dark and stormy night and blah, 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 blah. So I do have like sort of a Reader's Digest version of what the book will be.
I would think too, with history thrown in, like with your book that's going to come out in a week,
Yes.
that you'd have to have
What book
We
are you
planned
talking
this.
about,
We
Sue?
I'm
We have to-
sorry.
we have to keep-
rehearsed this and I blew it. No.
We have to keep naming it. We have to keep
The
saying
Enemy
my
at
book,
Home.
The Enemy at Home. You mean The Enemy at Home, Sue? I'm so obnoxious.
My goodness, Kevin, the Enemy at Home. I would think you'd have to, you had to do, you said you were doing the research, you'd have to keep your facts and make sure that this didn't exist in this, they didn't have, they had radios, they didn't have
Yes,
television, that
yes.
kind
No,
of.
no one's
And
making
the
a cell
street didn't
phone call.
exist then,
Yes. Oh, because you know what? Mystery readers are the worst as far as catching you on something, because they're looking for clues and everything else. And so if you have something that's a little off and it's very uh just not working, it doesn't go with the time. There's a word, it's not, is it an anachronism? No. What is the word that
I think that's
I'm
it.
having a senior moment? Is it
No, I think
inaccurate?
we're all going, yeah, I think so. Well, yes,
But-
it takes place in Seattle, and you can't
Right.
say, and the Amazon truck drove by.
Oh, yeah, yes. You can't have anybody on their
Didn't
cell
exist
phone.
then.
Yes. Oh, there was so many times that I was sort of stifled by, and this was one of the historical issues that I had, is that we know now about things that they didn't know at the time. And so, like,
Oh,
for
yeah.
example, it's 1943 in my book, and Corregidor happened with the Bataan Death March, that really, is a horrific event in history, but we didn't know about it until 1944. So there were things, for example, even the Holocaust, I
Yeah,
couldn't,
yeah.
that we didn't know about the death camps. So there were rumblings about it from that leaked, but everyone, it was quite a shock that we didn't know until late 1944 for sure that this was going on. So things like that I want to make reference to, I realized I couldn't. One of the things that was most frustrating, and I found fascinating, was, as I mentioned earlier, we were afraid in Seattle, we were afraid of the Japanese bombing Seattle. And the Boeing plant in particular would have been a perfect target. So they made a roof that looked like it was a village, and they had burlap trees and plywood homes, and they were all sort of just mid-size. They were all like, not really that's the right size, but they were just all a facade, and the whole village was there on the roof, so that from the air it looked like you were bombing just a town, sort of a
Oh,
quiet,
wow.
sleepy street.
That's really cool.
I know. So if you go online and you look up Boeing fake roof, you'll see
Yeah.
pictures of these women standing by a house that's about the size, comes up to about their head. They had a Hollywood set designer design it, and I wanted so bad to incorporate it in the story, but the roof wasn't completed until 1944, which, we go, well, that's kind of late in the game, but we thought we'd be in the war until 1946, 47 because of the invasion of Japan.
I commend you though for sticking to it, because some people take liberties, because we have had some authors, and they're well-written book, and the one spoke here in person and even admitted that this didn't take place, but she wanted, because of that reason, she wanted to include it in the story to make it a little more,
Yes.
fast forward a little, and I wouldn't have known the difference because I wasn't familiar with the story she was telling. That's the other beauty. A lot of these stories we didn't know about them, and they're coming out.
Right.
But at the same time, when you're a history buff and you really, it's like,
Oh,
no,
yes. Well,
don't take
the history,
liberties.
I know I'm probably going to get corrected. I'll admit it right now. One of my big difficulties, and I should have just talked to someone at Boeing, but was trying to get the exact time for the shifts. And I knew they had 3 shifts, but I wasn't sure what the shifts times were. And I did read in one book that one shift ended at 10, but I wasn't sure if that was correct. And I wasn't sure if they were like 8 hours, 7.5 hours, when lunch was. I had to,
No,
I have,
that's, yeah.
yeah. So I did kind of have
Wow.
to kind of wing it a couple of, when in doubt, fake it. Churning out a book a year, you get used to kind of doing the shortcuts. It's like, okay, I've never been to Los Angeles. Where is this? And so I'll go on Google and look at maps, and I'll look at real estate to see what the houses are like, and I'll look at the city website to see, what their main industries are and where their recreational places are. But, often you have to take the Google shortcut.
Yeah, I can understand, yeah.
I miss you must miss, I don't know, you are too young for Ready Reference to call up the library. That would be the first thing, is like, we can't figure out who starred in On the Waterfront and who was that character. I'm gonna call up the library.
We still get those kind of questions.
Oh, you do?
And it's like, but luckily we have Google, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, hey, welcome to the 21st century,
South
buddy.
Carolina and I'm on vacation. Could you tell me where, like, what the heck? You call me on your cell phone. Hello. It's like, yeah. Yeah. But I hear you. Well, we're running out of time, but it's really flown by. It's been great.
Oh, thank you. You guys have been great. Are we giving away books?
I'm gonna do that
We
a little
can
later.
do that later.
So
Okay, for the people who are there.
I don't have enough to give around to everybody. It's just too hard.
So you're just your favorites, your favorite
That's
people.
right.
are
You had to
gonna-
come to the library.
or your relatives. They're all gonna be relatives of Sue. It's like, oh,
My friend in Seattle's
you didn't
getting
know
one.
that she's my sister-in-law?
I'm getting one. Oh my gosh. But this book is coming out. We do have it on order for our library. I'm sure
Wonderful.
I'm sure the other libraries do too, because as I started to say, I found one of your thrillers on our shelf, but when I looked you up, we belong to a consortium that has like 40 libraries in it. And that's why you belong to a consortium, because we're a small little library and there are other libraries that are bigger than us. And so if you want to read any of his other books that he's written, they are available in the MVLC, but we also have access to the Boston Public Library and outside our
And the
consortium.
audiobooks, I'm sure and
Everything.
we have a great audiobook. I just found out that the narrator for The Enemy at Home is Hillary Hubner, I think her name is Hillary Hubner. And she did Nora Goes Off Script, which was a really fun book, which I highly recommended, from my sister, which I read like in one sitting on a plane. I was like, oh, this is juicy. And but apparently she's a great narrator. So I'm so
That's
thrilled.
good to know, because that makes a difference. We just had that discussion in one of my book clubs that, if you're listening to the book, which I do a lot, because I'm trying to hit two birds with one stone, get a walk in or clean my kitchen or something. And
yeah, you can. And if you're going for a long drive, there's nothing like an audiobook. Yeah.
So any last questions or comments? Anybody?
You gotta bring him back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you
Oh,
please?
thank you. That's so sweet. Well, go out and get
Yes.
my book and tell your friends about it.
When your next book's coming out, don't be shy. Let me know. Maybe
Oh,
we'll
I
host
will in
you
a heartbeat.
again.
I will.
And
And thank you.
if you're ever out our way, we'll roll out the red carpet for you.
Oh, well, thanks to
Yeah.
the library and
We'll
to,
have an open mic night. No, I'm just kidding.
hey, that's great. No, I'd love it. I'd love it. And thank you for, I want a special thank you to the gang that came to the library.
I'm trying to, everybody wave.
Oh, look at you. Hey, thanks for coming, guys. What kind of treats did you have? You had some good treats, huh?
I got Oreos. I got.
Hey, you had me at
popcorn.
Oreos. You had me at Oreos.
I didn't bake anything this time, but anyway, well, thank you again, and I'm gonna look at the chat again real quick. Thank you, Kevin. Great stories. Thanks. A very entertaining.
Thanks, Dennis.
Great discussion, and I know we probably had some other questions that we didn't get a chance. This was amazing. Thank you both for the amazing interview. Wonderful talk. Can't wait to listen. Yes, Bev's in my mystery book club. She definitely loves to listen to.
Hey,
That's what I had the discussion with about it.
make me your book club pick. They actually have book club questions at the back. So
Oh, that's cool. Didn't even know that. So
Yeah.
but anyway, thanks everybody that participated from home. I hope you know that I do appreciate that you tune in, and I'm clicking on the wrong thing. I'm trying to get out of chat. Anyway, and a couple of you, I did see that you were having problems getting kicked out the internet.
Oh,
All I can
sorry.
say is it didn't do it to me for once. I was like, it's happened to me and I've gotten kicked out and then I'm like panicking and I come back in and everybody's carried on without me and I'm like, okay, shoot. But I'm glad it didn't happen tonight. So
Don't you hate that when that happens? It's like,
yes.
I guess I'm not that important.
And
What the
everybody gets
hell?
mad at me and it's like, I don't know what to do with it. It's the internet or Zoom, but thank goodness we have this because he's out in Seattle, everybody, and that's how we were able to talk to you tonight.
Yeah.
So
There were
thank
some
you.
good things to the pandemic. That was one of the.
That was the, and it's,
one of the-
I'm still doing the hybrid. So
Yes.
anyway,
Great. Well, this library has been fantastic, and you guys got you said you're a small library, but you've got
well,
your
I
devoted
also want to thank
customers.
Robert Hayes, Tewksbury, because he wanted to join in tonight, and so he spread the word, and there are a lot of his patrons,
Oh, thank you,
regular
Robert.
program goers that have tuned in tonight. And of course, I did record this, and anyone that missed tonight, I will send it out. And for those of you, I just want to say real quick, I've been having trouble through the system that you register. I'm supposed to be able to do an email, a mass email, and I keep getting a message didn't work. But then I hear from some people got it, some people didn't. So I go through every single name one at a time, copy and paste and email it. And I don't work until 12:30 on Mondays because I work until 8:30 on Monday nights. So please, if you do another program, don't panic if you haven't got it yet. I think the time to panic is if it's 6 o'clock and you haven't gotten an invite, but that's why it takes me so long, because technology isn't helping me. It's getting harder.
Oh, please.
But it's all worth it. It's all worth it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Night,
Thanks a lot.
everybody. Thank
Good night.
you.
Thank you. Take care.
Good to hear
Can't
from
wait
you,
to
Ken.
read
Good to
it.
see you, Ken. Take care, Bo.
Good to see you, Dennis. Take
Yeah,
care.
man. All right.
See you later.